would like to dine on you right now. I'm just kidding. I don't know where I was going with that. I was possessed with the spirit of Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins? Hannibal Lecter. It's early. I'm confused. My brain is absolutely fried. Oh. So, I'm not going to talk about this with you right now, but I just thought I would tell you that we started blocking Die Mommy Die, and it's it's going to be an exhausting show. I mean, it's very campy and it's very stylistic. It's very big and broad, but between everything I'm doing right now, my brain is mush, absolute and utter mush. But that's okay. Anyway, that's not what I want to talk about, as I said. What I want to talk about today with you, Muse, is I have recently experienced a very humbling thing. And it's I think that this experience was probably part of one of my greatest revelations of growth that I've had as a writer. And honestly, though, I guess I shouldn't say that it was so much as a revelation, but it enforced a revelation that I had a while ago. Let me explain. I haven't really talked about my Fringe Killer series much with you, Muse, and that's probably because I left it behind some time ago, because it simply, well, it fell by the wayside when I started writing the iZombie series, and I never really bothered to pick it back up, which is, you know, it's on me. It's a shame to me, but while a while ago, and you know this, I started going through all of my older books and giving them the second edition treatment, giving them some much needed polish, because over the last couple of years, as you know, I have put so much more importance on the post-writing process. In other words, the editing process. Prior to a couple of years ago, most of my energy was directed towards the actual writing of the book. And because I had, for the longest time, felt of myself that I lacked the skills to do anything but write a rough draft. And that was my mistake. But it was a mistake born of so many years ago, me understanding that I didn't have those skills. And I didn't. 7 years ago, no way could I, you know, I would get my rough drafts done, and I knew that was it. That was as good as I could do it, and I required the editors. And that's putting it in a bit of extremis. It wasn't that I couldn't go through it again. It was my ability to edit. I just didn't have it. So over the years, the last decade, my skills have improved exponentially from that point. And so now I feel like I can not edit, but I can now go back and proof my own work. And I couldn't do that before. I really, truly couldn't. And actually, now that I'm reflecting upon it, I think I could have. I think at that time, 10 years ago, I was just being lazy. And I think that was kind of grew out of this idea that, oh my gosh, it took me this much time to write this first draft. I don't ever want to see these words again. Just someone else take care of it for me. And I think that's where it stemmed from. And so, but the problem is that I stuck with that ideology for myself, and just didn't bother to find out that it wasn't necessarily true. So, all of that to say, I just went through my book Endgame. Now, you and I haven't talked about Endgame much. I've talked about it with other people for other instances, but Endgame was the book that nearly ruined me as a writer. And I not ruined me, but Endgame almost became my Endgame. I almost quit after that book. And what happened in a nutshell was I found an editor for the book. And let me back up a little bit. I got invited into this collective of writers, and they sought me out based on my work. They respected my work, and they wanted me to be a part of their group. So I thought, sure. I was flattered. It was early on. I mean, this was a long time ago. And so I accepted. I joined the group. We did some anthologies together. I made all the covers for the anthologies. We kind of helped each other back and forth with ideas sometimes. And some of us became actually close friends. And so in that process, in the exchange, I offered to do some covers for a gentleman who then, in turn, he was a good editor. He would edit my book. And that book was Endgame. So I handed him the book. I sent him the book. And a few weeks passed. I can't remember how much time it passed, but a few weeks passed, and I get this email from him saying, I can't do this. I'm not going to edit this book. And he then proceeded to rip me as a writer and as a person to shreds. And it broke my heart. I mean, it was cruel. And I didn't know where it was coming from. I was shocked. And eventually he finally confessed that the book was hit too close to home. He had apparently lost somebody in an accident that was very similar to what was going on in the book. So, needless to say, I left the group because I felt like not only had I did 3 covers for this guy, and he then did that to me, but all of a sudden there were a couple of other authors that were picked up by publishers, and it got to their head, and they started treating everybody else very poorly. So, because of that situation, before I left the group, one of the other members of the group said, I'll edit. She knew what had happened, and she said, I'll edit the book for you. So I said, okay, fine. She edited the book. I got it back, and to be quite frank, after what I'd gone through with that book, I was done. I was done with it. And I was so close to going, I can't do this. If this is the way people are going to treat their colleagues and their peers, if this is the way it is, I don't want anything to do with it. But I had put so much work into the book, and and this person had taken the time to edit it for me, and I said, fine, I'll go ahead and publish the book. So I published the book, and I just, whatever. I left it to its own devices. And I couldn't go back to that book. Well, fortunately, the years had passed, and I had cooled down, and it didn't bother me anymore. So over the past couple of months, it's a long book. It's probably one of the longest books I've written. Over the last couple of months, I finally said, okay, it's time. And I dug in to giving it the second edition polish. Now, generally speaking, the second edition polish in some of the books has just been reformatting or adding a prologue or a preface or some sort of short story or something to give it a little more value. This time, however, it was an eye-opener in that this friend that willingly said, I'll edit the book, did me no service. And the book was in terrible shape. And I'm glad, I'm ashamed. I was ashamed of the shape that the book was in. But I'm glad for it because I learned. And one of the lessons that I learned was that in this universe of authorship, you get what you pay for. If you have somebody edit your book for free, then you will get a for free worth of edits. And I think that it's important for authors to understand that if someone's going to do something for you gratis, they're going to put that level of work into it. And they're not truly beholden to you for anything. So they can half-ass the work if they want, because they're not getting paid for it. If someone, however, is paying you and you have a contract for that work, then they are beholden to something far greater. And they are then responsible for the quality of the work, or partially responsible for the quality of the work. And I have since, I don't remember when it was. Well, I was actually paying an editor even before I did Endgame. But that editor, her prices, I was one of her first clients, and she was a good editor, but her prices skyrocketed. And this was the kind of the deluge of indie writers when it first started. And her prices tripled on me. So I went from paying about $300 to $400 for an edit to almost $1,000 for an edit. And at the time I was writing so many books, I couldn't afford it. So that's why I kind of went out and bartered. And that is my mistake, obviously. It's clearly my mistake. But now I can, because I have not only distance from the book, but I've also evolved and grown as both a writer and a person. And I don't look at that. I don't look at Endgame as, oh my God, I'm embarrassed, I'm ashamed. What was I thinking? Now I'm just like, I learned from this. I learned so much because of this book. Because after Endgame, because of that whole kerfuffle with the editors, I searched long and hard for an editor to work with. And I went through a few, and, one of them was just bad. It was just so bad. And one of them was good. One of them was great. And the one I'm using now is great. But in the end, I think that the most important thing that every artist should understand is that they are responsible for the quality of the work. And you can't turn around and blame someone else. I couldn't blame the quality of Endgame on that friend who wound up turning her back completely on me. I could not blame the quality or lack of quality on her, because it's my responsibility to make sure that everything that I publish, everything that I submit to publishers, or everything I publish on my own, is of the utmost quality. And when readers read something, they don't, and they see problems with a book, they don't go back to the front book matter and find out who edited the book. They just blame the author, because it's the author's responsibility. So any person out there who has these hopes and dreams of being an author, and right now is not a good time for anybody to jump into this universe, because right now it's bleak. To say the best, it's bleak. And I want to believe that it's going to get better, because I've staked my livelihood on words, but I don't know that it is going to get better. At least not for a while. And so anybody that's thinking about doing this, what I would suggest to you is right now, use this time to hone your skills and work with other people. Learn how to work with other people. Learn how to work with editors. and hone your own writing skills, your own proofreading skills. Do not, if you're a writer, do not pretend that you can be an editor, because you're not. No one, and I mean no one, should edit their own work. Period. End of discussion. That would be like me being an actor and saying, I'm going to direct every show I do. No, don't. Just don't. I mean, I know that there are instances where we've seen actors direct shows, but you know, most often when those actors are directing their shows, well, first and foremost, that mostly only happens in television. It's a rare occasion that you find an actor on stage that directs a show, because the actor can't see the picture. The actor can't see the big picture. And the writer's the same way. You know, you get tunnel vision with your work, and you can't see anything outside of that tunnel. And an editor can see beyond the scope of the tunnel. Now, it's fine. You know, I've reached a point now where the last pair of eyes that see my work before I hit publish is mine. And generally speaking, I proof it twice, and I proof it on 2 different devices. My first proof is on a laptop, and then I convert it over to a EPUB or Mobi, and then I do the final proof on a Kindle. And I have always found that proofing things on 2 different devices gives you a different perspective, and you'll see things that you would not have seen otherwise. And you know what's also important, and this may sound crazy, but when I proof on the Kindle, I always put it on the dark setting for the fonts, because that will catch issues with proofing, especially if you're using like MS Office or LibreOffice track changes. Sometimes it will switch the coloring of the font, and you won't catch that if you're just reading it on a laptop or on a Kindle with regular coloration of the page. So you've got to switch it to the dark page and read it that way. Plus, it gives you a completely different perspective, and you see the words pop out much better. So, but that's getting into the minutia of publishing books. But the lesson here is you get what you pay for, and you have got to be willing to stumble, recover, figure out why you stumbled, and be okay with the stumbling and recover gracefully. Because if you don't recover gracefully, you're not going to recover. And you can't lash out at people. You can't beat yourself up for something. You just recover gracefully and move on. One of the things I always, in my many years of actor training and my decades on stage, is one of the things that always became truly important to me as an actor is when I made a mistake on stage, the first thing I did is forget that I made a mistake. Because if I don't forget that I made that mistake, I'm just going to keep on making mistakes. Because it's like a big snowball, and you can't let it go. Because you have to be in the moment. You can't be in the past moment. You got to be in the moment right there. And the same thing holds true as an author. You've got to make your mistakes. You've got to accept your mistakes. You've got to recover from those mistakes gracefully, and then move on. Don't forget the recovery, but don't latch on to the mistake and hold it tight such that you can't move on. Because we've got to move on. Just learn from it. That's the key. Learn from those mistakes and allow those mistakes to improve your process. Because if you're not constantly improving your process, you're standing still. And if you're standing still in this industry and in this world, you're moving backwards. And we can't afford to move backwards. Period. Right, Muse? Woohoo! I'm sorry, that was heavy, and I don't like to have all this heavy discussion, but right now I felt it was kind of necessary because it was in my heart, and it was something that I had just come out of, and I needed to bring it up. But anyway, that's it for now, Muse. I hope that you are absolutely fantastic as always, And I hope that you know how much I appreciate you. Because if you weren't here with me, I would have lost my mind. I would be in a padded cell with a straitjacket. And hopefully the straitjacket would be somewhat fashionable, but I have a feeling it wouldn't be. So it would be kind of doubling down on my suffering. Anyway, that's all I got, Muse. Have a glorious, glorious splinter day, because it is not spring. It is not spring. It's winter. It's winter part 2. Muse, you are awesome.